Hello, gorgeous humans. Good morning. Welcome to the morning show. I am your host, Marli Ansel at Marli Ansel on the Instagrams, and this is the morning show where you come to get your daily dose of inspiration and level up into your highest being. It is all about real life, but we make it so magical, and there is so much to talk about. Let's dive in. Happy Monday. Good morning. Hello. Happy Magical Manifesting Monday. Today, we're going to talk about the practical magic of manifesting, and I'm going to tell you guys a little story of where it kind of all began for me and one of the first really massive, huge things that I manifested in my life and exactly what I did. So, it's going to be real juicy. But first, let's talk about those cosmos. So, how was everyone's full moon? Full moon in Virgo. I'll tell you what, the day before the full moon, like the night before, it was Saturday morning that the moon was entirely full. The night before, I was entirely like done. My brain is done. My mind is done. I'm out. I don't like it. I don't feel good. I'm good. It was that kind of vibe. So whenever I have that vibe, because I think it's very normal, especially when you're sensitive to the big energies that are happening and you are maybe like me where you're always kind of in this personal development world, you're seeking new levels, you're seeking new frequencies, all of those things. You're going to have these days. So what I do in these days is full surrender mode. I just let it go. It's like, yes, I can't do people. People are peoply. Can't do that right now. Okay, cool. We don't have to do that right now. I can't figure out what I'm even going to do the next day. Cool. Okay, we don't have to do that right now. It allows me to be fully present in the moment. And that is what I allow myself to do and be when I am in those kind of moods. It's like I can't think past the next hour. Okay, cool. I don't have to. I'm just going to let it be. Good morning, Amber. Hello. So the night before the full moon, this was kind of the vibe I was in. I was just feeling a whole lot. And I just allowed myself to just, you know what, it's fine. It's fine. And my husband says to me, he's like, what do you need from me? And I was like, I just need you to not be concerned about me. And he was like, done, done. I will not concern myself with what's going on with you. And then what was really funny is we went to the grocery store because I wanted to make quesadillas and we didn't have the proper cheese. And I was just like, in my like, I don't want to do or think or interact with anyone mood. I was like, what do I do? I need the grocery store. So Robert's like, you want me to take you to the grocery store? I was like, yes. So we go to the grocery store. We're going to get the things. And he said something. And I was like, well, yeah, like we need that, or I don't know, I forget what it was. And he was like, you're the one who said for me not to question you and just make sure you're satisfied. And I thought it was the best phrase in the whole world. Don't question me, but make sure I'm satisfied. Like, what a prerogative of a woman. It was fantastic. Relaxed. We had dinner. We watched a movie. Actually, no, we watched one of our shows that we've been binging out. And then the next day, with the Virgo full moon, I got more than enough sleep that night. I felt really good, really, really good. So I'm curious how this energy landed on you this weekend. For me, it felt very portal like. It felt very much like a moving into a new level, a new energy. And we had the best weekend. So, big energy is among us. And the thing that keeps popping up for me over and over and over again is everything we're experiencing right now has never been before. Like, never been before. Like, there's certain conjunctions that happen all the time. But right now, we have not existed in this before. Pluto has not been in Aquarius since 1778. We have not had these conjunctions to Pluto in Aquarius and God knows when. And we have a lot of these new, what is it called? Synodic. I think it's synodic, new synodic cycles beginning, which essentially means that planets conjunct and they move forward together. So it's very significant new beginning energy. Everything is calling on us to do it differently, do things in a different way, look at things differently, look at from a broader perspective, The energy of Aquarius is very much for the people. So how can you look at what you've been doing from a different perspective of, I might be doing it for me, but how does it benefit the whole? And so everything right now is it's new. It's new cycles beginning, old cycles ending. And so if you've been feeling a lot, you're right on track. This is what's been happening. But the real question is, what do we do with it? How do we embrace it? And the thing that's been coming for me over and over and over again is there is a vision you feel called to. There is something you feel called to create. There's something that's been on your heart. There's something that's been asking to be birthed through you. And now is the time to really start nourishing it. Think of it in terms of farming. There is a process to growing a crop where you have to till up the land. You've got to literally uproot the things that cannot stay. You've got to nurture it and fertilize that soil. And then you start planting the new seeds. And so, right now, I feel very much that we are in a time of planting new seeds. We're not looking to harvest a new crop tomorrow. We're looking at, what do I need to put in place to start nurturing a new level of existence, to start bringing that new manifestation in. So, I mean, I feel like it's very magical right now. Like, we are swimming in some magic. And I think it's only going to get better from here. But we've got to do our part. So that's part of what we're going to talk about today with practical manifestation magic. I'm going to share with you guys a story of one of the first really huge manifestations that I ever did that kind of set the trajectory for where I exist today. And I'm going to talk with you about how you do have to do your part. You've got to do your part. The word co-creation when it comes to manifestation is not just some fun word that we just say. Co-creation is there's my part, and then there's this magic divine God universe's part. I cannot do God's part. God cannot do my part. It is two separate things. So when we think about it in terms of this, there is a oh, I don't know if it's from the Bible or not. I don't want to butcher it, but it is something along the lines of God will do everything that you cannot. God will do everything that you cannot and nothing you can. So think about this in terms of like, there is big, big rearrangement energy that has to happen in some cases for things to come to be. Things that you don't have access to, things that you can't make happen. You couldn't plan it or force it to happen in a million years. And then there's things that you have access to, that you know exactly what to do. So let's break it down into a story. When I was in college, I was going to school for marketing and loved it, but graduated in that time period where there were no jobs. There were no jobs, right? I mean, that's a very broad statement, but you know what I mean. Like, the economy was crazy, and finding a job, I was doing everything I knew to do to find a job, but it was just not happening, right? So I ended up getting offered a position, and I actually do not remember how I came across it. I don't know if there was a recruiter or something of that nature, but I ended up getting a job managing a restaurant, which I don't recommend. If you love it, you love it, but it's hard work. It's really hard work, and I did not get paid nearly enough. But I was excited because it was a salary, it was a job, it was insurance, like all the things, right? So I'm doing this job for about a year and really just hating it. Worked way too much, was very, very tired all the time, didn't have time for anything else, and obviously knew that this was not the way. But also was very much aware that this was a stepping stone on my path. This was not going to be where I was forever. I was trying to make the most of it, but it was definitely not going to be my path. So in that, I started asking myself questions. And this is something that has been occurring for me a lot lately. I started asking questions because I was unhappy with the way life was. I started looking for a different route because the level of life I was existing at was not comfortable. And this is where we just really start to think about this. As a species, a human species, We tend not to move into the unknown until the known is so uncomfortable that we cannot stand to stay the same. So, discomfort is our motivator, typically 10 out of 10 times, to move into a new level. Now, that's typical. That's typical. Ideally, we want to eventually get to a level where we are seeking what we want to create rather than being forced into it. You feel me on that? But typical normal human, I was very uncomfortable. I did not enjoy the life that I was living. And so, what I started doing was asking myself, okay, what do I want to do? Now, I was one of those girls that I always loved fashion. I always loved clothes. I wanted to move to New York, but didn't have the money to do it, like all of those things. And so I thought, okay, I always wanted to work in fashion. Okay. Well, I need to figure out what jobs are even available because it was very broad. Like, I just want to work in fashion. Well, what does that mean, Marley? You're 5'2", you're not going to be a fashion model. Like, what does that mean? You tried to learn how to sew, you really hated that. So designing is out, right? I was like, okay, so what do you want? And so what I did was I started researching what jobs there are, what is available in this fashion industry. And what I landed on was a buyer. So, for those of you who are not in this niche industry, a buyer is someone who decides what clothes go into the stores. So, they are being presented by vendors, the people who make the clothes, the brands, the labels, all of that. And then they're picking and deciding what goes into the store that they're working for. So, I landed on this. I was like, oh my God, I want to be a buyer. That's what I want to do. I want to be a buyer. And so, what I did, obviously, there was a huge gap here, right? I'm working as a restaurant manager. I did not go to school for fashion merchandising. I went to school for marketing, which is served me well, by the way. It was a good choice. But I didn't have the education to be a fashion buyer. So, and it's so funny because at this time I was not I understood a level of you create your own reality, but I was not in this like deep dive of understanding of quantum physics and energy and spirituality and personal development like I am now. But I just had this innate feeling like, do what you can. Do what you can. There's always a way. I've always felt this way. Like, if there is something you desire, if there's something you want, there's always a way. And so I knew that. So what I did, I researched, I figured out I want to be a buyer. That's what I want to do. Okay, cool. I know nothing about this. I went to a used bookstore. So I used to live in Knoxville, Tennessee. It's where I went to college. And in Knoxville, there's this massive store called, I think it's McKee's. And it's like used books. Well, CDs aren't really a thing anymore, but it was CDs and DVDs, just this used like media store. And you could donate to it. You could sell your stuff to it, and you can go and buy stuff from there. So I went there and I found a used textbook from the Fashion Institute of Technology. Of course, I recognized FIT because I was obsessed and wanted to go to New York, but could not afford to do it. So I buy this used textbook and I started teaching myself things in this industry. I started looking at, what is the difference between a knit and a woven? There's a whole world out there, you guys, that you don't even realize about. Anyway, so I started doing what I knew to do. I took action on my part. Now, what I want to point out is at this point, doesn't it seem kind of hopeless? like, doesn't it seem like, okay, Marley, you were working in a restaurant and you went and bought a used textbook. Like, good on you, right? But I could feel as long as I kept moving towards what it is that I wanted, something would come together. I didn't know how, I didn't know when, but it made me feel good to start putting puzzle pieces together for this bigger picture of where I wanted to go. Now, mind you, I didn't have the capability to even fully picture it. And in manifestation, a lot of times the directive is feel the feelings of, visualize yourself there. I had no idea what it looked like. I just knew I wanted something different than where I was, and I started to piece together what that might be. So I bought a used textbook and I started teaching myself. Now I looked into what would it take to go back to school and to get a fashion merchandising degree. I looked into art school, like I looked into all of these things and it was not an option. Didn't have the money to do it. So I was like, okay, well do what you can. What is available to you that you can do? So I started teaching myself. Well, interestingly enough, one of my parents' friends had worked for a department store in our region for like 30 some odd years, something like that. And my mom says to me, let's go to lunch with him. You can just ask him some questions about how to maybe get into this industry. Now, college Marley was like resistant per usual. Like I am probably the most resistant individual you will ever meet. I know that seems probably like, no, you're not, Marley. But truly, I reject and resist everything first. It feels like it's part of my genetic makeup. Like it's my coding. I reject, but I am aware enough to not say no. You know what I mean? Like I feel it in my body, the resistance to wanting to do new things, to putting yourself in a situation you've never been in before, even to like getting dressed in the morning. I would much prefer to just stay in my sweats, in my sweatshirt, and no makeup and no hair. I mean, some days I like doing it, but most of the time I'm like resistant to it. All the same. I knew she was right. And so I was like, okay, let's go to lunch with him. So we go to lunch. I talk with him, tell him, what my ambitions are, what I want to do. He gives me some advice. And even more importantly, he gives me two contacts. Okay. Are we tracking on this story? Because it's a juicy one. He gives me two people's email addresses. I go home, I email both of them. One of them was a manager of one of the department stores, and the other one was a recruiter specifically for this store. I email them both with my ambitions and what I'm looking for and all of these things, right? Okay. So the store manager emails me first, and he essentially says, like, come in for an interview, pretty much. So I go to talk to him. Mind you, I'm still working at the restaurant. Okay. And we'll get to that. But I go and I talk with him. I end up talking with this guy who is the manager of like the flagship store in the city. I end up talking to that guy for like 45 minutes. We just had the best conversation. It was just vibing, connecting, and he immediately offers me a job. Okay. It's not the job I want, right? Because I want to go into the corporation. He's offering me a job for the store. But my thought was, it's one step closer. It's better than where I'm at, right? And so, of course, I accept. I accept the job. Well, meanwhile, over the last few weeks, as I'm pulling my energy out of the restaurant and I'm starting to put it into this new endeavor, things at the restaurant start kind of falling apart. Not like the store is falling apart, but just my connection to it. So, in the meantime, while all of these things are happening where I'm pursuing building this new level of life, while at the restaurant, the manager, so I was the assistant manager. We were both managers. He got promoted to manager, which made me assistant manager because it was the opening of a new store, all the things, right? Everyone thought I should have been it, but I was honestly happy that I wasn't the like manager because I did not want that kind of responsibility. Anywho, I find out that he had been blaming me for the things that were not going right at the store. Like it's my fault. He was blaming me for workers being on overtime. I read an email that he had written to our district manager, and he was putting all of the things that the the district manager was asking, why is this like this? Why is this like that? He was saying like, oh, that was Marley's fault. Marley did this. Marley did that. Marley, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, excuse me, sir. No, I did not. Anyway, so I found out about this because he left the email open on the computer by accident. Yep. Uh-huh. So I was like a little bit of ragey inside, right? Because, when someone lies on you, like that is unkind. But I was also like, signs. You know what I mean? Signs. I'm not meant to be here anyway. I don't care. So anyway, over the next couple of weeks, he's about to go on vacation. And he decides the day before he's going to go on vacation that he's going to have a little meeting with me. So he sits me down to have a meeting. Mind you, I was supposed to leave early because I was in my best friend's wedding. And so he knew that. But instead of talking to me earlier in the day, he stops me when I'm about to walk out the door to have this meeting. I was like, this guy. Anyway, so he's talking with me. He's reprimanding me in a way, telling me where I fall short, blah, 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 and all of this stuff. And he goes, I mean, do you even want to be a general manager? And I word vomited. I was like, no. So much so that it shocked me. And I was like, oh shit. And then he was like, he was shocked, because typically, ideally, if you're going to work for a company, your ambition is to move up in the company, right? But I was just looking to get out of it. So anywho, after I word vomited this out, I was like, oh shit. I think I just semi quit my job, right? Luckily, though, he was going on vacation. So I knew that nothing could happen at least for a week, right? So I end up going and telling my mom, I'm like, Mom, oh my God, I think I just quit my job. No. I told her what happened. And then over the week that he was on vacation, my district manager calls me and asks me essentially if I was planning to stay at the company because my manager had told him what I said. And I said, no. And he goes, is it safe to say that I should look for a new assistant manager? And I said, yes. And that's when I was like, oh my God, I think I just quit my job. So this is when the momentum really started picking up. Mind you, I want everyone to pay attention and listen. All I did was get clear on what I wanted and start taking actions towards it. And then things started happening to move me out of that job and into a new one. So then I get offered the position to work at the store for the fashion company that I was interested in. He gives me the position. I put in my 2 weeks notice. And then in that 2 weeks, I get a call from the recruiter for the corporation saying that the buyer for this department at this store wants to talk with me about a position for merchandise assistant, which is essentially the entryway into the move up the ladder to become a buyer. And I was like, yes. So I have my interview. Ends up the girl who was interviewing me, and so the assistant buyer and the assistant buyer went to the same school that I did. So we connected on that, talked with them. Oh my God, it's happening. Within the next 2 days, the recruiter calls me. She tells me I've got the job. Can you move here in 2 weeks? What? I literally cried. And that is what moved me to Charlotte, North Carolina. That is how we won't get into the whole story, but worked for this company, ended up starting to seek personal development even deeper because there's nothing like getting your dream job and then realizing it's not a dream. That's a different story for a different day. Building myself up, working on myself, eventually starting my own business, running now full-time business for almost 5 years. Met my husband, Robert. Do we see the things? But what I want to point out is practical manifestation magic. It didn't seem possible. You feel me on this? It didn't seem possible, but I got clear on what I wanted. And I did the things that I could think of, that I knew to do, that would move me in that direction. And one by one, the pieces started falling into place. Now, I want to point out as well, I wasn't happy, which is what pushed me to start doing these things. So if you're in a situation where you feel as though you don't like what's happening in your life, let that inspire you. Let that motivate you to get clear on what you do want because it's going to move you in the direction that you need to go. The other thing on it is I didn't have a timeline. I didn't have this needs to happen tomorrow or everything is going to fall apart. I'm going to die. I didn't have that. It was just like, let's just move forward. Let's just move to somewhere different. And it started to work in a way that I never in a million years could have put together myself. All I did was start moving towards it. Got clear on what I want, did the things that I knew to do. Little teeny tiny actions. Actions that seemingly would create nothing, but they did. And this is how our world of energetics works. When we start to move towards something, everything in this universe starts rearranging to support that path becoming open, that path becoming the path, and a way will be made. A way will be made. So, our our manifestation steps, get clear on what you want. If you're unhappy, get clear on what you want. Especially if you are happy and you're loving life, get clear on what you want. Do you see what I'm saying? Don't wait for life to get uncomfortable for you to start making a move towards the unknown. Don't resist the unknown so much that you then end up getting pushed into it from unhappiness. Do you feel me on that? Get clear on what you want and then ask yourself, what is right in front of me? What is available to me to do to move me towards that right now? And allow the universe to do its thing. Allow the magic to work its magic. That's not your job. God will do everything you cannot and nothing you can. So do what you can and allow the universe, allow God to move things in a way that your little baby brain could never do it. Never do it. Our human minds are not programmed to create the things. Our human minds are to keep us alive. Right? All right, my loves. Thank you for being here. Thank you for enjoying my story. This is the morning show. And we're here Monday through Friday, every morning at 10 a.m. with some manifestation, magic, and more. So I'm thinking about starting to do some themed out days. And I have my ideas of what I want to kind of do. But one of the things that I know for sure is we're going to start doing Friday Q&A. So if you have a show or a question for the show that you would like answered, send your questions into assistant@marlyansel.com. And every Friday, we will answer at least one question that comes in and we'll deep dive into the magic. All right, my loves. Thank you so much for being here. Please share the show. If it resonated with you today, please share with at least one person that you think it would create an impact for. It helps us to grow our show, to grow our impact, and to increase the vibration of the whole. I love you so much. Thank you for being here. And I will see you for another episode of The Morning Show tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Goodbye, my love.